331 joins us from New York's Hudson River Valley. Christina was first introduced to camp by way of her husband, number 12931, Scott Sylvester. She and Scott are proud parents of number 25431, Lucy, who's here today, and number 24231, Zane, a junior at Dudley, and Hayden, who hopes to be a Dudley camper soon. Christina first visited Kenya in 2015, where she shared the original Girls Rising film with leaders and senior campers as a Mass Vesper. She was promptly invited to speak at chapel. Christina was born in Canada and grew up in Austin, Texas. She graduated from Brown University with a degree in comparative literature. She went on to the University of Texas at Austin, where she earned a master's degree in community planning. Ever since Christina was a little girl, she knew she was a storyteller who wanted to make a difference in the world. Now her work is firmly rooted in documentary filmmaking, where she uses stories as an engine for powerful social change. In 2009, Christina helped found Girls Rising, and 8 years later, she led its transition from a film production company to a nonprofit. It all started with a particular story that she developed into a feature film. Girls Rising follows 9 girls from places like Haiti, Nepal, Ethiopia, and India. In a world where millions of girls are kept out of school, married as children, and discriminated against simply because they are girls, each story shares a common thread, shining a light on the power of education to change a girl and to change the world. Indeed, research has shown that educating girls is the single most powerful way to end global poverty. Personally, I've had the pleasure of getting to know Christina over the past 4 years. Correspondences with her are always inspiring to me and have me traveling in the world of my imagination a lot. A few snippets from our emails. Quote, "It's been a busy month for Girls Rising. We had to get a person to northern Nigeria and to India in the last few weeks, but I'm happy to report we met with the Prime Minister of India last week, and he pledged to support for the campaign here." That was May in 2015. Quote, "Just back from Washington, D.C., where we discussed a potential Pakistan project with the State Department." That was May of 2015. And quote, "Crazy fall with a premiere, a new film at the White House, to going to Saudi Arabia, and now I'm off to Guatemala on Sunday." That was November of 2016. And then one day, I got an email in my inbox from Christina Lowery, CEO. I was so excited. It said, "Happy International Women's Day. Today we launched our newest film, Brave Girl Rising, which we have been hard at work on for the last year. I ask you to reflect on the power of education and the power of supportive family and community in our lives. It is something not to be taken for granted." So that was March of this year. First off, I've never been so excited to get an email from a friend's work email. I opened it thinking I was going to get an update on family, and it was from the organization and Christina. But these last lines really struck me. I ask you to reflect on the power of education and the power of supportive family and community in our lives. This coming from someone I am deeply inspired by and always eager to talk mothering, family, travel, and social progress with, I really found myself taking a moment to say thank you to my supportive community and to Christina. May the work she does remind us all, as it did me, to recognize our power and our privilege and to use it to bring a better life to others across the world. So please join me in a warm Kenya welcome for number 25331, Christina Lowery.
Thank you, Molly. Good morning, everyone. I'm so happy and honored to be speaking here in this beautiful place. a place that has become all the more dear to me, with my daughter Lucy having just joyfully finished her cub summer in Wilmot Cabin. A couple of months ago, I traveled to Guatemala to visit the programs that Girl Rising is running there with our local partners. We journeyed out of the capital city on windy roads. In this part of the country, narrower, paved roads lead off from the highway, leading to bumpier dirt roads that wind through beautiful countryside, dotted with small plots of cultivated land and very simple concrete houses that make up small and medium-sized villages. In these villages, there is very little opportunity for children to go to school past the 6th grade, particularly girls. In fact, in this region of Guatemala, only about 30% of girls who are in 6th grade continue to 7th. Let's see what that looks like right here. How many of you are in 6th grade or below? Raise your hands if you're in 6th grade or below. So if 70, keep your hands up. If 70% of you didn't go to school, maybe all of you and a few of you would be done with school. You can put your hands down. You would be done with school after the 6th grade. Done for good. And what then? You'd probably have to find a job or help out at home. And there is much help needed for just basic survival in these areas. In one village we visited, in fact, 80% of the fathers have left, leaving their mothers to raise the children, tend the land, and find some way to make enough money for basic needs. Girls not in school help to do all of these things. On our journey, we visited some of these villages where we are working, and we also visited, in one of the bigger towns nearby, a school called Maya. Maya was founded to provide the highest quality education and personal development to these girls who often do not get to continue school. So far, they have 150 girls enrolled in 7th through 9th grade, and they're adding a grade every year, guaranteeing that those girls who start in the 7th grade can go all the way to the 12th grade and then be set up to go beyond. Maya is run by women from this part of Guatemala who themselves defied the odds. They became educated, and then they returned to this region to ensure that as many other girls as possible could have the same chance. Every girl who is admitted to Maya receives free tuition and everything else she needs, from incredible academics and extracurricular activities to leadership training and mentorship, to food, to clothing. Maya is giving these girls the tools to be change makers, to be leaders in their communities and in their nation. I met a 9th grader named Florinda at this school. She told me she wants to be an environmental engineer. And I went to visit her family and got to sit down with her mom and dad. Her father, who primarily works a small plot of land and grows crops to sell, told me how he had learned of the school. He spoke through an interpreter because he speaks a language called Quiche, which is one of the more than 20 indigenous languages that are spoken in Guatemala. He himself had only attended school through the 2nd grade, and his mother similar. And like many of their neighbors, they had assumed the same would be true for their children, because this is just the way things were. But someone the father knew told him one day about Maya, and that he should have his daughter apply. He should check it out. His daughter Florinda won admission to the school, and a new chapter of her education and her life, and a totally new chapter for the entire family, began. One that they had never planned on happening. Florinda's parents had to commit to certain things, like all parents who send their daughters to this school. They had to ensure their daughters got to and from school safely. They had to support her education, meaning allowing her enough time for school and schoolwork. And the parents also participated in meetings every other month and home visits every month. And they learned everything from child development to communication skills to how to support their daughters. Here's one exercise we did when we were together. The family mapped out where they were 5 years ago, where they are today, and where they envision being 5 years from now. My Girl Rising colleagues and I were asked to do the very same thing. Florinda's father told me that 5 years ago, they assumed their daughter would not continue school because what few resources they did have, they needed to save to send her brother to school. But in mapping the now, they said they had completely changed their mind about the importance of their daughters going to school. And they talked about how much they themselves had changed as individuals and as a family. For 5 years from now, Florinda's parents stated their intention that Florinda and their other children, sons and daughters both, would continue through the 12th grade and beyond. In rural Guatemala, these kinds of statements and commitments are quite simply revolutionary. I found Florinda and her family and the staff at this school, Maya, extraordinary. They were living examples of how change happens. And the truth is, whether it be in rural Guatemala, in your communities where you live, or right here in this magical place called Kenya, all it takes is one person of courage to speak up, one person of conviction to stay the course, one person to set a change in motion that ripples outward and transforms lives. In Florinda's case, it was a friend of her father's that happened to tell him about this new program and encourage him to think about it for his daughter. As a result, an entire family is changed, in the present and undoubtedly for future generations. And it was the founders of Maya, this extraordinary school, the only one of its kind in Guatemala. And as a result, now 150 girls' lives and their families and their communities are forever changed. I think most people, if asked, would say yes. Of course they want to be a positive force in the world. But when we think about ways to make a difference, ways to make the world better, it can be mightily overwhelming. We don't know where to start. So as a result, we often don't start, but we must. And I think it starts with something you talk about here every day: the other fellow first. Everything that happens here at Kinnean ripples outward from that beautifully simple and powerful motto. And in living by that motto, each of you becomes a change maker. Each of you can and will unleash a chain reaction of good. I believe with all my heart and soul that each of us has an important role to play and a responsibility to make the world, our world, a better place. We are called upon to be powerful, inspirational, ingenious, and authentic advocates for the world we want to see. We are called to be both messengers and doers for the things we believe in, for equality, for great causes, for making the world a better, kinder, more just place, for putting the other fellow first. So how? How can each of you do this? I think there are 3 superpowers that each and every one of us has that we need to put to use. Number 1, your actions. You begin a chain reaction of good when you lead by example. We all know people we admire and wish to emulate because of the way they carry themselves in the world. They are authentic, kind, wise, true to their word, generous. They don't sweat the small stuff. They are grounded in something that seems solid and unchanging. They're the kinds of people who inspire us to be better when we're around them. You are lucky enough to be surrounded right here by many people I think fall in this category. And you, each of you, can be one of these people too. It is within you. You are a messenger in your everyday actions for the values you believe in, for what you hold dear, for the values you put into practice here every day, for the other fellow first. Imagine this life-affirming and powerful ripple effect. When you are inspired by someone who does something kind and generous, and then you choose to do the same, and then someone is inspired by you, and on and on. Think of the power we can unleash when we lead by example. Number 2, your resources. How will you spend your time and your money? In every choice you make, you create a ripple effect. And you might think, well, I don't have enough time or money to make a difference. And you would not be alone in thinking that. But I will humbly tell you that you are wrong. Some of the most impressive and inspiring efforts I have seen in my work with Girl Rising are what girls and boys your age, and some even younger, have decided to do to make a difference. One 15-year-old New York City student I know organized his friends last winter, held a series of bake sales to raise money to buy much-needed school supplies for a rural school in Cambodia. A 12-year-old girl I know decided to spend once a month go and volunteer at a soup kitchen in her community. A 14-year-old girl from Baltimore decided to collect pennies from friends, family, anyone she could find who would give her their pennies. And over the course of a couple of years, she collected 1.5 million pennies. Can anyone do the math here on that? How much that is? $15,000 worth of pennies, which sent 300 girls to school in Afghanistan. Often we don't even realize how little time and how little money it takes to make a very real difference in someone else's life. So my question for you is, how can you use your time and resources to serve the other fellow in this kind of tangible way? Number 3, your voice. Every day you have the opportunity to stand up for what you believe in by what you say. And in fact, these days there are so many platforms to say things, to use your voice, it's dizzying. But all too often, I think, in our communications with others, across all these various devices and platforms available to us, we choose to stay up here, to skate right on the surface. I encourage you to go beyond. Venture more deeply. Think about what values you want to stand for. What are your great causes? Causes you believe cannot be postponed and need our urgent attention, and the attention of your peers, your parents, your teachers, your elected officials. And who is the other fellow that you can stand up for? I encourage you to go beyond here too. Of course the other fellow is your cabin mate, your teammate, your sibling, maybe the new girl in your class. But there are many, many other fellows that might just be invisible to you. They may not go to your school. They may not live in your neighborhood. They may not look like you or be the same age, race, or nationality. You may not run across them in your day-to-day life. They may even live on the other side of the world. These other fellows need you, need all of us who have capacity and voices to stand up for their needs as well. You each have these 3 superpowers: your actions, your resources, and your voice. Use them for the causes you care about, for the values you hold dear, for the other fellows in the world. And by using all 3 for good, you will unleash a powerful, unstoppable chain reaction for good. I leave you with these words from Mother Teresa. I alone cannot change the world, but I can cast a stone across the waters to create many ripples. Thank you.